We have made it to episode 5 of managing the sales process. Today, we are covering how do we offer good options to our customers based upon everything we've learned about them in steps 1 through 4. If you're just now finding this channel, my name is Dana Neeson. I am a manager for Tailored Legacy. I run a telesales team across 17 states, and all we sell is final expense with one carrier over the phone. And hopefully by the end of this series, you will learn how to have better, more educated, stronger, more sophisticated sales conversations. So we're at the end of a sales presentation. We're getting to the point where we're about to be offering quotes. We've gone through the health questions. We figured out what plan type they qualify for. We understand if they're looking for a cremation or a traditional burial. We know whether or not it would be important for them to leave additional money for their family. All of this matters when figuring out what would possibly be the best option for our clients. You also need to take into consideration somebody's age, somebody's health, and even if they can't afford the amount of coverage that they might need to take care of the full burial, in that example, that the mentality is we have to find something that's affordable that will, at the minimum, ease the burden for their family when they pass. So it seems pretty self-explanatory that if you had a customer that just wanted to take care of cremation costs, that most of the time your cookie cutter options should be about $5,000, $8,000, and $10,000. That's typically where we start. If it's for a traditional burial, we start either between $8,000 and $10,000, go up to $15,000 and $20,000. We can go as high as $35,000, but we typically don't have a significant amount of policies in the $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 range. If your customer does not know what their final wishes are and they haven't decided, don't stress out about that. Don't say, oh no, I don't know if they want a burial or cremation, so I don't know what to quote them. At this point, you're just coming up with a funeral plan, a general funeral plan based on what's affordable for your customer. So a good rule of thumb, I like to start at about $8,000, depending on the age and health of my customer, and we can either go lower or we can go higher. But when I offer options, you can do it one of two ways. Some people like to say, would you like to leave a check for your family for $5,000 at $45 a month? Would you like to leave a check for your family for $15,000 for $75 a month, or would you like to leave a check for your family for $25,000 for $100 a month, right? Those are just generic examples. Saying the words, would you like to leave a check for your family? You really have to base a lot of this on who you're talking to, because we're dealing with a population that is living on a very limited income. Sometimes I will give them one option to start. And I'll say, now, based on everything you've shared with me up until this point, Mr. Customer, my recommendation would be to look at an $8,000 policy, and here's why. Because not only will it take care of the cremation, the immediate cremation expense, but it'll also allow them to have that extra money, because you had shared with me earlier that you wanted your ashes spread, at this particular place, and they might need the transportation costs to go ahead and do that. You had also shared with me that they're going to need to clean out your house, so we'll give them a little bit of extra money for that, as well as they might have to take time off work to grieve and handle these final arrangements, so it'll give them a little bit of buffer. And that one would be about $65 a month. Now, before I go on, Mr. Customer, how does that feel for you? Okay. And it's very, very important, if you want your recommendations to be much stronger than everybody else's, the number one thing you should do is justify why you're recommending them. So I've given this coffee maker example a few times on my Instagram page and in a sales training, which you're going to see in the objection handling video on episode 6. But if I were to walk into a store and look for a coffee maker and the sales rep asked me all these questions about what I was looking for in a coffee maker or what I like to do when I drink coffee, let's say she asked me 8 or 10 questions and then brought me to a coffee maker and said, well, this is the one I recommend, and then just left it at that, I might want to like turn the box around. I might see if what we talked about even matches what it says it does. I might not even understand what it says. So it would really make a lot more sense if she handed me the coffee maker and said, now I really think this one would make the most sense, Dana, because not only does it grind the beans 1 cup at a time, like you said you wanted, but it does also have an option here to steam and froth the milk for you. It's also very easy cleanup and low maintenance, like you said you were looking for. It also has an optional drip system if you ever want to attach it to your water system at home so you don't constantly have to refill. I'm just throwing up examples off the cuff, but that will make me feel like this person really heard and understand what I was looking for by not just saying, would you like this one, or this one, but saying, this is the one I would recommend for you, and here's why. Okay, that's one way to take your recommendations up, not even 5 notches, like 10 notches, because that is now the finale, right? You've really shown that you're an expert by understanding your customer, by asking good questions, acknowledging how their situation is making them feel, what type of impact it's having on them, getting to think about the consequences of not putting something in place, educating your customer by holding their hand and explaining it to them so they feel comfortable in making a choice on their own, going over some of the extra features and benefits that we've talked about in previous videos, kind of summarizing it all up, asking them if this is something they would even want to have, asking the health questions, and finally at the end, getting to recommendations. You have to be able to justify them. If you end up your call and you say, well, I have 5,000 for 45, I have 8,000 for 65, and I have 10,000 for 75, which one of these sounds best to you? And then you've just completely gone away from value-based thinking and you've just made it about price, right? The whole point of why we're going through this sales process is to not focus on the price. We want to focus on the value. So why would we then not focus on the value when we're giving the pricing, right? Once price comes out of our mouth, we're done, right? We're toast. That's it. There's no more walking back. We have to brace and prepare ourselves for the objections that we're about to get, because you're going to get them, even if they want it, right? Which is something we'll talk about when we get to objection handling. But I hear a lot of people on the phones today giving just general quotes without justifying them. Just giving general quotes because they want a cremation, giving general quotes just because they want burial. And you have to be careful when you're giving a $20,000 quote for burial if your customer can't afford it. And you should have a very, very good idea of whether or not your customer can afford a $20,000, a $25,000, a $30,000 policy when you get to the end. Because based on the questions you ask, you should already know that they're living on a fixed income or not. Maybe they're still working. But this isn't just something that they make payments on right now, right? They're going to have to make payments on it for the rest of their life, even when they're not working anymore. So you really want to be mindful of that. I understand that there is inflation. I understand that the cost of funerals go up. I understand that what things cost today may not be what things cost in 10 or 20 years from now. However, I always want you to go back to the fact that your job is to put your customers in a better position than they were when they got on the phone with you, which is more than likely they have nothing. So are you really doing them a disservice if you put them in a $10,000 policy as opposed to the $20,000 policy that they might need to really cover the full cost of what they want? Because isn't that $10,000 a heck of a head start for their family towards whatever else they might have to come up with out of pocket? Or should the customer just say, well, forget it, I can't afford it, and get nothing, right? Are we really doing them a favor if we stick to the narrow mindset of you need a $20,000 policy or your family has to come out of pocket. No, we have to make them feel good about the fact that even if we can't afford the full 20,000 that they said they wanted, that they're still doing a really good thing and they're putting their family in a better position. That's the mentality I want you to have. I want you to offer options that are relevant to your customers. I want you to justify those options based on what you've learned. And I want you to make your customer feel good about making that decision, even if it's less than what they wanted. You may get them to hold on to every word you're saying, and they'll just say, yes, that sounds good. Let's do the 8,000. And at that point, you better be shutting up and starting to write that application. Okay, a pitfall, a very common mistake that agents can make is the customer will say, that sounds good, let's do the 8,000. And then you start talking them in again about why the 8,000 is good, or maybe they can go lower, or maybe they can go higher when they call back at a later date. Like, don't give them any more options at that point. An example of what that would sound like would be, yeah, the 8,000 sounds good. Okay, good. Yeah, I like that one too, because it's going to give them everything they need to take care of it. And remember, we could always go lower if you want to. Do you want to look at maybe like a $6,000 policy? Would that maybe be easier for you? Like, why would you do that? Right? So as soon as your customer says, yeah, the 8,000 sounds good, perfect. Let's start with who we're going to put as your primary beneficiaries. Now, I know you said earlier it was going to be your 2 kids. So let's get the full spellings of their names. Okay, and you're just going to write down, you're going to go through your entire application, get as far as you can go until you get another objection, which there's a million reasons why you're going to get objections during the application process. We will cover that in objection handling, which is the next video, but I really don't have a lot more to say about offering your customers good options. It's probably the easiest part of the sales process, but if you mess it up, then you're toast, right? You all of a sudden don't look like the expert anymore. You've just offered someone 20,000 of coverage for someone who just wants a cremation, right? Or you've offered 5,000 of coverage for someone who wants a burial and you haven't justified why you're offering them that little of a coverage. So keep all that in mind. It's very, very important that you remain the expert all the way into the quoting so they actually feel good about making the decision with you. All right, that's it for recommending options. I'll see you in objection handling.